Ooh. Okay, guys, so yeah, pretty soon, before we know it, it is gonna look like this outside. So we wanna make sure that right now in October, we are giving our hives the best chance to make it through all of this. Whew. And get to next April so that we can have the best year yet as beekeepers. But this is going to be a brief overview of the 3 most important things that you need to start thinking about in October so that when we get to this, your bees are going to be warm and safe and ready to go for next spring. So I need to go get something warm on. Greg the Bee Guy, stay with me. In the past, we have been, I don't want to say unlucky, because unlucky is really not a good word, a good term for it, because there are a lot of things that you can do to help yourself get ready. But we've had a couple really bad winters. And I'll be honest, last winter was probably one of the worst that we've had in the last at least 5 years, So when we first started out, we lost all 2 of our hives the first year. The second year we lost all 3. The third year we actually made it through winter with 2 hives, I think, out of 5. And then we had some really good winters in there. So one winter we made it out 90%. I think we had 12 hives. We made it out with all 11. The following year we had like 25 hives, and we made it out of winter time with 18. Last year, just to give you guys an idea, we went into winter with 50 hives-ish, give or take, and we came out of winter with about 25, so we had about a 50% loss rate. And mind you, the craziest thing about beekeeping, and a lot of beekeepers will tell you this, we didn't do anything different. We didn't do anything different. We fed the same way, the hives were set up the same way. We did try a couple different things. Now, whether it worked or not, who knows? We had some hives that we tried some new things on that survived, and we had some hives that, we tried some new things on that did not survive. But what we want to kind of do in this video is give you guys 3 bullet points that you can kind of check off to make sure that your apiary is in the best shape that it can going into wintertime. And that first bullet point is making sure that you have strong hives. And October is a perfect time to make sure that all your hives going into wintertime are as strong as they possibly can be. And what I mean by strength is number of bees. So, when you're talking about wintertime, as beekeepers, and I think this is kind of a misnomer or a confusing point, is beekeeping in the wintertime is not about cold. Bees can survive cold days and nights for long portions of time, as long as they have another bullet point that we have on this list that we'll talk about in a second. But bees can survive cold. If you think about it, we're here in southwestern Pennsylvania where it may get down, maybe 1 week it might be in negative digits, but for the most part, it's coldest between like 10 and 20 degrees Fahrenheit. For all you Celsius guys, you got to do that conversion on your own because I have no idea what that would be. But between 10 and 20 degrees Fahrenheit. But for the most part, our winters probably average around 20 to 25 degrees the whole way through. So if you think about you guys that are beekeepers in Canada, what we are worried about is moisture and being able to have enough bees in that hive to move that air around and to keep that hive at a great humidity for the bees. So guys, just remember, when you're talking about hive size, it's not really necessarily about keeping the cold out. It's more about keeping the water and the humidity out. Now, bees do need some humidity and some water in the wintertime just to kind of survive. But for the most part, you want to worry more about humidity. That's why you want to have great ventilation and some other things. But when we're talking about hive size, the one thing we want to look for in October is kind of wrapping up your hive inspections, getting prepped to do mite treatments in November. But what we want to make sure is when we do our hive inspection, which we are going to be doing tomorrow, we want to make sure that we have some hives in our apiary that are low functioning hives, which means, when you open up that lid, you see a couple thousand bees instead of a really nice full hive. That you want to make sure that those smaller hives that you probably And you know, as an a more experienced beekeeper can look at that hive right away and say, yeah, that ain't never making it. But as a new beekeeper, what you want to be aware of is you can kind of tell, right? You open up that hive and you see maybe 2 frames of bees, not a lot of resources. You know that hive's probably not going to make it. So what you want to do in that case is you want to start combining some of your smaller hives with some of your bigger hives so that you make those bigger hives even stronger. Now remember, if you do that, you also have to make sure that you are upping the resources in that bigger hive because you are adding bees to it. But what you want to do is you want to make sure that those smaller hives get a chance to survive wintertime. Because again, we did all this work. We did all, maybe it was a swarm you caught late and they're just not producing. Maybe it's a bad queen, whatever the reasoning is, you want to make sure that that hive is combined with a larger hive. And there are many ways to do it. Well, I mean, there's really like a half dozen ways to do it. The easiest way is the newspaper method, which we're going to get into in another episode, because tomorrow what I'm going to do is me and Brian are going to come up here and we're going to do some work in the apiary, and we are actually going to combine 2 of our hives together using the newspaper method. So stick around for that video. It might be a day or 2 before it comes out, maybe next week, but we are going to do that tomorrow. So number 1, bee population. Well, actually I should say number 3, bee population. If they're low, they gotta go. So just remember that, guys, and we're gonna get on to number 2 next. So number 2, and boy, I'll tell you, man, do I just absolutely love the smell of fall. Like, that is one of my favorite overall seasons, is just coming out here and just seeing all the trees. The trees really haven't like popped yet, but man, just to come out here and smell the fall air is just unreal, and it's just so good for the soul, guys. So number 2 is disease prevention and control. So again, this is going to be a hive inspection kind of thing where you're going into your hive and you're looking for some signs that you have diseases in that hive. Now, you might not be able to right away tell, but you want to look for certain things. Number 1, you want to look for, obviously, like the obvious signs. So wax moths, cocoons, and stuff like that. Make sure that, your hive beetle count is lower. Look for hive beetle larvae. And if you don't know what hive beetle larvae is, I'll put a picture, I think right up here, down below, or wherever. I'll put a picture up there for you so you can see what the hive beetle larvae look like. But pull a frame or 2. They're normally on like your honey frames. You'll see these little tiny white worms crawling around. Those are hive beetles. A lot of people think those are wax moths. They're actually not. Those are hive beetle larvae, and you want to make sure that you take care of that as soon as possible. And we will talk about some ways that you can control that here in another video. But wax moths, hive beetles, and then mites. Now, obviously, mites are going to be something that you can't really just look at and see. So you may or may not have to do a mite test. And that's a little bit rough right now, just because you don't want to lose any bees as possible. You want to make sure that you can keep as many bees in that hive as possible. But you may want to consider doing some mite tests, maybe every other hive or every 3rd hive, just to see where your mite counts are. If you did a mite treatment in July or August, you should still be kind of okay. And now you do know you're going to have to do a mite test, or a mite test. You're going to have to do a mite treatment if you do mite treatment. So there's a lot of natural beekeepers out there, and I understand I might get some heat, down in the comments saying, well, I don't do any mite treatments at all. That's great. I wish I could be in that same ballpark with you. There are a lot of ways to naturally treat mites and to keep mites out of your hive. I mean, the biggest thing is to just have strong hives, right? But anyway, I don't want to get too deep in the weeds here, but make sure that if you have any of those other visible signs of pests or kind of infestations in your hive, especially hive beetle and wax moth, because the wax moth can really wreck a hive going into wintertime, destroying comb and really causing some problems for the bees. And also hive beetles, obviously, the higher your hive beetle counts are, it's going to be really bad for your hives going into wintertime. And I'm going to tell you, southwestern Pennsylvania this year, I have seen more hive beetles than I have in years. I bet you if I told you in the last 5 years I've seen more hive beetles this year than in all of the last 5 years combined. So that's number 2, is disease acknowledgement or disease inspection and prevention. Made it to number 1. If you like what you've seen so far, leave a like, leave a comment, share this video if this video helped you at all. Number 1 thing that you have to be worried about as a beekeeper in October, getting your apiary ready to go in the wintertime is, and I'm sure most of you guys guessed it already, is resource management, otherwise known as food, right? So we want to make sure that our bees in October, that they are going to have enough resources to make it through all those winter months. So when you do your hive inspection, the number 1 thing that you should be looking for is that resources that are in that hive. And if you don't have enough resources in the hive, or most of the time as beekeepers, we will still supplement that food, even if we think that there's enough resources in the hive, just to be safe. And there's a lot of different ways to do it. I'll post another video with some cool things that you can try, some fondant, some dry sugar. Mark Wassel from the local bee club, he did a little thing on making these hard sugar like cake boards, not a candy board, but like an actual white sugar cake thing that you can put on top, which really works well. And he's very, very successful in his apiary with using that dried out sugar type technique, which we'll do a video on that for you guys coming up. But what we want to make sure is, if you are going to supplement feed, that you have to make sure that you do it correctly, because we don't want to get into a situation where you're adding water to the hive in the wintertime, or you're getting into maybe another situation where you are blocking off ventilation. And again, that is the worst thing that you can do with whatever you use, whether it's dry sugar, whether it's fondant, whether it's a candy board. Do not cover up that middle hole. Even if you insulate, if you don't insulate, it doesn't matter. Leave that venting so that those bees can get that humidity out of that hive. So that is it, guys. Just to give you kind of a quick, real fast rundown. Number 3 was hive size and making sure that you condense smaller, less strong hives with your stronger hives to make sure that you have the best chance to get those through the wintertime. Number 2 was pest management and disease management, and you want to make sure you take care of all those diseases. And number 1 was resource management, otherwise known, aka food supplies for your bees all winter long. So guys, that's it for the video today. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you got something out of it. If you stayed till the end, drop a like, drop a comment. It's a gorgeous day. I mean, it's kind of overcast up here in the apiary, but it's a gorgeous day to be out today. In the fall, in October, there's nothing better than southwestern Pennsylvania in October. Greg the Bee Guy signing off. Have a great one, guys. LFG.